Hey everyone, this is Matt at the Patriot Party, and today we have a very special show. We are doing a live interview with Jack Mcmahon. You guys and gals can expect a very interesting interview with Jack, who is a published author and veteran. Y'all can find Jack's website link at the bottom of the description page for this podcast. Please check it out. Now let's give a very warm welcome to Jack Mcmahon. Jack, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I was reading a little bit about you, and you've put out a book. So let's dive right in. Tell us a little bit about this book.
All right. It's Atrophy and Asymptotes, Father's Ravings on the Decay of American Values and Authoritarian Drift.
Okay.
I started writing it a little over a year ago. The kind of main purpose behind the book was I call it my non-financial life insurance policy to my daughter.
Okay.
It's written as like essays to the public. So the majority of the book is kind of spoken to the audience of like general readership, and each of those sections is capped with like a more personal kind of letter to my daughter to be read when she's an adult. She's now 9 years old, though.
I got an 11-year-old. Yep. I understand that.
And,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say the subjects are kind of not appropriate for a 9-year-old, but it's more meant to like show what's going on behind the scenes in my mind, like when she's an adult, so she can know me better, like this version of me, this age of me better, because right now she just sees me, as dad and playing silly games with her. So I wanted to show her more of like the real me, but to be read as an adult.
The real you and the real world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to go a little off script for a minute because you were talking about the book and authoritarianism and all those things. So kind of break that down for us. Break it down a little bit more as far as like your views, how you believe that society is moving towards authoritarianism, censorship, those kind of things. Let's get an idea of how you're viewing what's going on in the world today, because it's a very interesting time.
Okay. So I kind of see it's largely libertarian, but I would say within the first 5 seconds of reading the book, everybody would probably assume I'm just this guy's a right-wing nut job.
Okay.
But then, kind of as the book goes on, I kind of show the importance and how I see it. I like the values of the right and the enthusiasm of the left. I think both of those are important aspects to fighting against authoritarianism. And that's kind of what's
Go ahead.
that?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I kind of use like this idea of rage and reason within the book, which kind of fits that, where you need both the emotion of life and the logic of life to kind of overcome this creeping authoritarianism. One, to just like identify the problems or opportunities. Something makes you happy, you're using your emotion, and therefore you're identifying an opportunity. If something makes you angry, then you realize this is a problem. We have to deal with it, and then you use your logic and reason to kind of figure out what you should do in response to that.
Okay. All right. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I was going to cover this topic a little bit further in the interview, but you brought it up. So I have a question for you on the statement you made, or a statement that you've made. So you say to use both emotion and logic in life, one to discover problems and the other to solve them, without rejecting either part of our humanity. So I'm going to play devil's advocate because I have always found that it is hard to think clearly when your mind is clouded with emotion, whether it be in the law, business, or trying to report unbiased news. Because in my experience, using emotion gets you one step closer to a biased opinion. What is your response to my rebuttal for using emotion?
I definitely agree with that, and I think how I kind of incorporate that agreement with you into like my worldview is that you have to, before you get to the point where you're making the reasoned decisions, but with the bias of emotion, you have to think about these things prior, and you have to lay out your beliefs, lay out your opinions when you're in a calm state of mind. So when those emotions do pop up, you can stop them at just the point of, I'm identifying that this is a problem, and it doesn't actually carry on into your what do I do to solve the problem. So if you kind of lay it out logically, you already have like this, like a map inside your mind, because you've already thought about it during a peaceful time when you're not emotional, and you're like, okay, I already know the logical steps when this risk presents itself or this opportunity presents itself, and you just, in your mind, you follow that map that you've already made without emotion. So like, let's say like gun control is a big one,
Mhm.
where people use emotion to try to uh, institute what I consider authoritarianism with like gun laws. So if you've already laid out your opinions logically, written them down, I think once you write them down, they're written. They're they're there.
Yeah.
You can't say you didn't say it. You can change your mind, obviously, but if you've already thought through, like the Minnesota shooting recently, if you've already thought through what is the proper response to this type of situation, then when something horrible does happen, you aren't using um, that emotion to be like, okay, well, we need to just get rid of all of our freedoms in the name of safety, because you've already logically thought out that you're never going to be safe. And so if you can't actually do away with violence in the world because of the human nature, then you might as well just retain the freedom. And
Well,
yeah.
let me ask you something, because I've heard you say a couple of things about both parties and that thing. We do a podcast and we have a social media presence, but really this has evolved into a movement. And so the basically the mission statement for this movement is truth and constitution above all, because truth matters. We want to hold the media and the politicians to a higher standard. And the way I think, and we may be able to agree on this, the way, and I've given it a lot of thought, the way that I think to start to get back freedoms that have been eroded, uh, because the Constitution continually is challenged, and every time it's challenged, there's an interpretation, and every interpretation is subjective by nature, and then it gets eroded more and more and more and more. So, in my mind, one of the ways to really not mess with our freedoms and do almost a reset is to hold the politicians. It's going to take one administration to go in there and say, we are going to set the bar where every piece of legislation that comes out of this administration, every policy, we are going to do everything possible to uphold the Constitution. One of the big problems, if you really look into it, is it is checks and balances, but it's also, and it is challenging to see how far you can push the Constitution, but it's also, in essence, the way our laws are written. The legislative branch writes them very ambiguously. So they can be interpreted this way, they can be interpreted that way. And that in itself is unconstitutional. It's void by vagueness. So they write these unconstitutional laws, and then everybody has an opinion on how to interpret it. Even the judges, when it comes to some of the laws that are being reported now that are being challenged, say, well, we don't think that they meant that act to say that. Well, if the judges don't know, we sure as heck don't know. So if we hold the Constitution as the guy, if the politicians hold the Constitution as their guiding light and lead by example, which is what America's supposed to do, then I think it'll almost be like a domino effect and give us a reset on to the country and help fix the criminal justice system. And I mean, it'll go on and on. It'll be like a domino effect to many things that are problems, because not only do we have those laws that are ambiguous, but then they come out, and I'll give you an example from an interview I had a couple weeks ago. guy that's offering VA stuff across the for mental health, and he's working with clinicians and doctors, nurse practitioners for mental health and addiction for veterans across the country, working with the White House. And one of the big issues is when they pass a policy, the policy then goes to the agency's lawyers interpret it very ambiguously, then middle and upper management interprets it again the way they think it should be, arbitrarily, and it gets watered down the further it goes. And that's what's happening to the laws. That's what's happening. We have to start repealing these unconstitutional laws and either they fix them or they're gone, and we start fresh.
I agree. I think of it kind of like how you're saying, like the reset idea.
Yes.
Um, I think that naturally you're always going to have like an ebb and flow of like authoritarian versus liberty, and just the human nature of powerful people is to try to keep grabbing more power, and they're able to do it because of what you just exactly said, the ambiguity of laws and how everything's written, and a lack of focus on the Constitution. And that reset would be like, every time the power starts creeping up, you have this one administration that's just like, we're repealing, repealing, repealing. Rather than creating our way out of it with new laws, we're just dumping the old that doesn't work. And in my opinion, yeah, if there was an administration that passed zero laws and just strictly deleted, one old law every month, I would be like, that's the perfect presidency.
Absolutely. I mean, but think about it. Once you set that bar, they're not going to be outdone. So if they set the bar, if one of them, I mean, right now, or Biden, we had all of them challenging First, Second Amendment, bypassing Congress through rewriting policies like Title IX. Then you got Trump, and he's pushing Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, Eighth Amendment rights. So it's like. And then you got people that say, well, the last one did it, so this one needs to do it. And I'm like, yeah, but where does it stop? Does it stop when we have no Constitution? Because that's what's going to happen in 50 or 60 or 80 years. It's going to keep on pushing, keep on pushing. But if one would rise up and say, we are going to set the bar here, whoever the other party is, Democrat, Republican, whoever, they can't necessarily come in and say, well, we're going to drop it all the way back down here. They got to stay where the bar is set.
Right. So like that concept I kind of relate to an analogy I use in the book is like 99 bottles of beer on the wall. The sing-song game. So like you start with like 99 values maybe, or 99 concepts that are within the Constitution, and then the left is like, we're gonna fight against the right, and we're gonna use these tools to do it. So now we have 98 of them left. 4 years later, the right gets in power. They say, well, they did it, so we're gonna screw over the left by getting rid of one more, and then you're at 97, and it just keeps going and going and going, and then eventually the vacation's over and you get to zero.
Yeah, I mean, we really push that the only way for America First and MAGA to be truly righteous movements is complete political disassociation. So there's no agenda hooked to them, because there can't be a political agenda hooked to it and it be the best thing for America, or it be the best thing for the citizens of America.
Yeah, I think the weaponizing it. You can't weaponize. Obviously, you kind of have everything's political, even the idea of being strictly according to the Constitution. But it's if you just refuse to weaponize, okay, people often say, well, if we don't fight back against the other side, then we're just going to lose over and over and over again. And it's like, well, if you use the same weapons as they use, and use lawfare and all these things, then you've already lost. That's a guaranteed lose, because you just are the other side.
Absolutely. You can't do tit for tat. Like I said, so one of them has got to just raise above the rest. We'll see if it happens.
Agreed.
I don't know, but I think it could work, because a lot of people, I think they overcomplicate. Even the so-called experts, and I think they overcomplicate things. I think if we could just take those two things of truth and constitution, and they may end up where legislative has to come out with the policy and not leave it to lawyers for the agencies to interpret it. They come out with the policies, which would be nothing when they're passing a bill. But the two main things, I think, if we just held the media to the truth, the politicians to the truth, and the politicians to the Constitution, I really believe we'd get that reset. It may take 15, 20 years, 25 years, but I believe that we would get it before it's too late and we don't have the rights, the fundamental rights, the constitutional rights that we're supposed to have.
Yeah, that again on the reset idea, that's kind of how I differentiate myself from like just the word conservative,
Yeah.
because it kind of implies like you like the status quo, but I want further back, and I don't want like I want to keep it as it is. I want 1776 minus some obvious ones.
Yeah.
Bad stuff happening. I want the like levels of freedom for everyone to be 1776 wise, based on that constitutional standard. And to do that, you kind of have to do things a little radical, like you're saying, like a radical change in politicians and how they're held accountable for their adherence to the Constitution.
Well, I mean, it didn't even have to go back to 1776. There's been 27 amendments that have come off the original Constitution. And once it's a ratified amendment, it is part of the Constitution. So, and those things have to do with civil rights. I mean, I didn't even realize the most recent one was 1992. And to change or to add something to the Constitution is an act of a higher power. I mean, it's 3/4 votes in the House, 3/4 votes in Senate, and then 3/4 of the states have to vote to make a change or an amendment to the Constitution. So it's a big deal. But heck, it just happened back in 1992, so it can be done. So my thing is, if you feel so strongly about something, because people complicate this and say, well, we don't know how you feel on different issues. Well, just put truth in the Constitution to those issues and see if they hold water. My thing is if there's not something in the Constitution that will protect somebody or do something, and it's an obvious, then you know what? It needs to be added, but it needs to be added properly.
Yeah, I think they do that. They kind of give themselves a way out in like being able to say that by combining laws and legislation, and the fact that it's not single issue votes, and they're like, oh, even the people that will go tell the people I believe in this issue or that issue, but I can't vote on this because it's attached to this other issue that you guys hate more than you like the other one. And they intentionally, I think, do that just so they don't have to be held accountable for voting in bad laws that go against the Constitution.
Well, and you said a lot there too. It's not just bad laws. See, that's why another reason I have a problem with the parties, because I don't know exactly when, but a while ago it became more about the parties than it did about the people. We're not going to put this out there because it'll make the Republicans in charge look bad, or vice versa. It's election season, campaign season. We're more worried about keeping this instead of passing something that's common sense and intuitive towards the best thing for the people. So it's almost like it's not even about the American people anymore, because good ideas come from both sides. I mean, they used to come a lot more from both sides when we had the Joe Manchins for the Democrats, the true blue dogs, the centrists. Now everybody's so far to one side or the other that they can't even debate anything, because you have to have some kind of common ground, something to start from to have a debate. And these people are so far away from each other, the AOCs and then the people way out to the right are so far away from each other that they cannot cross the aisle.
Agreed.
So
I'm not sure I agree on the centrist thing 100%, just because compromise can lead to that same thing I was talking about with the 99 bottles of beer on the wall game, where it's like because we're compromising, that can lead to you just getting rid of one at a time. How it would work is if you add in your concept of a reset, everyone, it's just an ebb and flow, where it's like, okay, once you get to 80 bottles of beer on the wall, we got to do something, and we got to reset ourselves back to 99 values, 99% of the values in the Constitution, 100% of the values in the Constitution. So if we are running on this idea of centrism being the way to go, then I think there should be some other system that's inherently built in for those reset periods.
No, I mean centrist. I don't mean centrist as in that's. I mean, now I do agree with some of both, but I mean like they're the last of the true Democrats who could actually cross the line, who were more Republican now than they are Democrats. I mean, like Joe Manchin of West Virginia, he left so disgusted with the. I mean, he was a lifelong politician, and he voted with Republicans a lot of the time, but he left and changed to an independent because he was so disgusted where the Democratic Party had gone. And I think we can get a lot more faith back into the political spectrum and realm if both sides are trying to abide by the Constitution. Then they have a common ground to do debates on, which is what I mean when I say cross the aisle. If both are debating with a common ground of following the Constitution, then whatever comes out from them agreeing is going to be following the Constitution inherently.
Right. So the best of both sides, rather than
Yes,
caving on both sides caving to the worst of the other.
yes, yes.
I
But see,
like
the
that.
Constitution is the guiding light. It is the moral compass, the bedrock of this country to keep them the best of.
I agree 100%.
Cool, cool. All
I
right, let's
don't
get.
think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I. That's it.
Okay, we're gonna get a little bit
I agree.
back a little bit into the book. Got a little off topic there, but I mean it's kind of on topic with your book. So you say, and I think you said you put it into AI, but I want you to break it down for us. So you say either you or AI or somebody said you're an anarcho populist with a paleo conservative tendencies. You're a mixed color Ohioan, and in your words, what exactly does this all mean?
So there was actually another addition that I left out of there. I'll continue to leave out.
Okay.
I'll just say it also said I have anti-Zionist tendencies. I didn't. I was like, I
Oh,
don't know.
well, you know, I mean,
I'm not a groiper. I'm not a groiper. I just think America should be American. So anarcho, as in I generally believe in the decentralization of power.
Okay.
I think that in government, not in the private sector. I
No, absolutely. Government's gotten too
hierarchies.
big. My God, it's too big.
and just like this the centralization of power, like so the anarcho part would just suggest obviously if it's full anarchy it would just be individuals, but we live in the world, so that's not real. Like local governments having more power
Okay.
as compared to federal, except on a few key issues that you wouldn't want that like affect the entire nation. That's where federal should be a thing. Populist, as in just what's benefiting the people. I think that kind of from what I know about you, I think that kind of fits the things you've been saying. Just a rejection of the party and just what's benefiting the people, and the principles that we're founded on. Paleo conservative would be kind of like Pat Buchanan type
Traditionalist,
policy.
traditionalist Republican, traditionalist Republicans.
Yeah, kind of a lot of the things that Trump built his first candidacy on, I think, matched paleo conservative sentiment. I'm trying to recall. He may have. I've read a few Pat Buchanan books. I believe he mentioned like the tariff plan being similar. I'm pretty sure. And a lot of it had to do, though, was more how I view paleo conservatives is I like their foreign policy. Just a rejection of empire, trying to focus on the home rather than abroad, not getting ourselves involved in a war in every single country that gives us an opportunity to be in a war with. We can make an excuse to go to war with any person.
Absolutely. We don't
Doesn't
need to
mean we
police
should.
the world.
Yeah, a little bit maybe.
A little
When it
bit.
benefits us, or threatens us, then so be it. I guess that comes down to just like a risk reward tolerance just your personal belief on which things that you're afraid of in life. So I guess I'm more afraid of domestic issues than I am foreign issues. So that's kind of the main driving point behind my paleoconservative tendencies. And then the paleoconservative tendencies also lead to uh, anti-Zionist tendencies today, like, since the last 2 years, since October 7th, it kind of, when it got popular to talk about Israel Palestine. Um, so it's just like my paleoconservative opinions define my opinion on that war or that whole region.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this then. This will be interesting. I have yet to speak with anybody else about this, and this seems like we might have a pretty interesting discussion. So, you know, racism, anti-Zionism, all that stuff, unless it's blatantly, they're just buzzwords now that are used, I
Yeah.
think, by the media to continue to create chaos and split everyone. But my question to you is, okay, how do you feel about that war? What do you? I mean, what is your take on that war?
Um, I mean, a lot of different ones. So if you want to use an analogy to America, because we're all American and that's how we see the world. We see the world like through the lens of our history. Um, if you, I don't know.
Well, let me tell you what I
I
think, and then you can go off there. Let me tell
okay,
you what I think, and you tell me what you think.
okay,
All right, two things. One, if you look at the attack itself and do their population versus our population per capita, it was equal to 10 to 12 9/11s because they only have 10 million people. We have 30 sometimes as many people. So, well, not no, not more than 30 sometimes. Uh, anyway, so, when I did the math, it was 10 to 12. It's 10 to 12 times. Um, so, uh, 10 times the amount of people, yeah, would have been 10 to 12 times on that. So it would have been, instead of us losing 2,600, 3,000, it would have been like us losing, somewhere between 26,000 and 33,000. It was way more barbaric. I mean, they're cutting off heads, throwing babies in burning barrels. I mean, they're doing all sorts of craziness. And the way I look at it is, that attack was way more barbaric. If that had happened in New York City, look what, when it did happen, George Bush comes out and says, "You're either with us or against us. We're going after these people. They drew first blood. You're either with us or you're against us." So whatever Israel does, that's on them. I don't feel like we should be bashing them. There's no genocide going down per the definition of genocide. All these people keep throwing that stuff around. There's literally been more births than people have died. There's a lower death rate in the urban warfare than anybody else in the world when they've done it. It's on Israel. Now, as far as providing weapons, I believe under an America First agenda, it should be a business transaction. If we've got something you want, we're not going to give them to you. We'll sell them to you at a discounted rate. Therefore, the companies that manufacture them make money, and we can't stipulate, if it's a business transaction, what, how, and when you're going to do anything with them because you're buying them. Two, a lot of people talk bad about Israel and Jewish people and everything. And yes, there's been a lot of underhanded stuff that's gone on both sides throughout history. I mean, I think they stole our nuclear technology, and that's how they got, they had spies, and that's how they got their nuclear weapons. But if you look at it, Israel is the glue that holds the Middle East together and stops it from imploding into a hornet's nest of terrorism. So they're the ones who pretty much keep everybody in check. So they are our strategic allies. Whether they're our allies, real allies or not, that is a subjective up for interpretation, your opinion. But you cannot argue that they are our most strategic Middle Eastern partner to keep everything under control in the Middle East. I don't think you can argue. Maybe you can argue with it.
so I guess I don't take October 7th as the starting point. The comparison I was going to make to America was more going back to the starting point just of the creation of Israel and looking at that similarly to our creation, um, and kind of seeing not this is not a perfect analogy, it's just an analogy, but
Okay.
uh, seeing Palestinians as more the American revolutionists. They're so in October 7th being 11 or 12 9/11s would have been compared to early early American revolutionists doing the same thing to England. So again, it's obviously not a direct comparison, direct perfect analogy. Um, it's just like one of the things that influences my opinion.
Well, let me ask you
Also,
this. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like obviously, I'm more worried about our 1/9/11. I care more about our 1/9/11 than their Infinity 9/11s.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
I'm American, and I kind of have to ask myself why 9/11 even happened. And growing up, I think I was seventh or eighth grade when it happened, and seventh or eighth grade me didn't think to question the concept of they hate our freedom, because America hates our freedom. All our
Oh,
politicians
absolutely.
hate our freedom, and our politicians aren't running planes into buildings. So there has to be something more to it than that. And then our reaction to 9/11 was that, that fervor and bloodlust. And I know at the time I was all for it in seventh grade because I was just like, oh, somebody attacked us, let's kill them. Um, but our actual response wasn't let's go kill the people that did this. Our actual response was let's go work with Israel to topple a bunch of nations that actually weren't involved. And then we spent trillions of dollars over the next decades inflating our country into hard times, paying for some other country's war. I know they're a strategic ally in the Middle East, and we do use Israel to keep control over the area. But the question that I have that keeps coming up is, would we need protection against the hornet's nest if they just stopped poking the hornet's nest?
Mm, well, I've got mixed
Probably,
emotions.
yeah. It could be yes.
I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of evidence and footage on 9/11 itself, which points towards a much more nefarious and deep plot, that actually part of we may not have been involved, but it seems like we knew. I mean, if you see the video from George Bush when he was giving his speech to the kindergarten class and his Secret Service walked up and whispered in his ear that we had just been attacked, planes had just flown into buildings, his face did not look like he was surprised at all. At all. He didn't have a change of facial expression. So I almost think one of the big things that came out of 9/11 was the Patriot Act, which eroded civil liberties for U.S. citizens. They have used it a lot to take away civil liberties from U.S. citizens, counsel, everything. Now, I mean, we're not even talking about immigrant citizens, which are protected by the same thing, but we're talking about natural born U.S. citizens whose parents were born in the U.S. and everything. And so I almost don't know, I don't really know what to think of it. There's a lot of information out there as far as the jet fuel not getting hot enough to melt the steel and then imploding the way it did. I don't know. Some of it veers into the realm of conspiracy theory, but some of it makes a lot of sense when you have demolition experts showing the way buildings are coming down and they're not supposed to come down this way. And it almost feels, how did these people get past and do this to these airplanes that had minimal training? It just almost feels like they were let to do it, and it was let with an agenda on both sides. We're gonna beef up the military industrial complex, and they're gonna make a ton of money. We're going to go do this, and some of it's going to be about oil. We're going to take away and strip a lot of civil liberties, which now the FISA Act does because it's like the Patriot Party 2.0. And so, I don't know. I do know that this whole movement is America first, but not America only. only to the point of like, and I'm not saying this is the only time, but like, let's just, there's a lot of, all right, so there's kids all over the world where they get 15 cents of medication a day and that keeps them alive. I don't think we should take 15 cents of medication per kid and kill kids around the world. I don't think we
Yeah.
should cut that funding out. Now, any funding that is that's got fraud in it, or people are embezzling, or anything where it's not above board, okay. But I think we could do both. I think we could do what Doge set out to do and keep these kids around the world alive as an initiative to show that America is, does lead by example. No, we don't need to be the police around the world, except for in certain instances, like you said. But I think it should be America first, not America only.
Agreed. Another point too, though, like you brought the Patriot Act, and I don't know how I didn't even miss the connection to earlier conversations. Both our response to 9/11 and the recent response to October 7th, like, don't you see both of those responses as the emotional response that leads to the erosion? Like, we respond emotionally, and then we have Patriot Act. We respond emotionally, and then we have a bunch of censorship laws in America with the, like, because people are being racist about 10/7 or October 7th. So, like, isn't that the emotional response that we're trying to avoid? Like, it is okay
Oh,
to be
absolutely.
emotional about an attack on your country, but then you have to be like, okay, but we have this Constitution, and it doesn't matter how angry we are at A, B, or C group, or even like terrorists. It doesn't matter how mad you are at terrorists. Why is that an excuse for us to become one of these less free countries?
Absolutely. And I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with the FISA Act. I'll tell you that, this movement has kind of evolved. To begin with, it was unbiased news with a conservative perspective. I actually was friends with, he's the representative of my area with Mike Johnson, Louisiana, northern Louisiana. And I actually came up with a campaign strategy that he got to Trump's campaign manager that Trump used during his campaigning and during one of the debates. And I lost faith in Mike Johnson and the Republican Party April 12th of last year. The FISA Act was up to be renewed. The FBI had been using it to do warrantless spying on American patriots. And there was 250 to 250 in the House. 250 of them wanted to revise it to where they had to get a warrant from a judge and abide by the Constitution. 250 wanted to leave it like it was. Mike Johnson was the deciding vote. He told everybody, he's a constitutional lawyer as well, one of the best in the area. He told everybody, I'm going to go in there and we're going to uphold the Constitution. The ABC agencies took him to the back room, talked to him. He comes out, completely does a 180, votes to continue to let warrantless spying go on and violate the Constitution, and then gives this lame excuse to say, y'all don't see the big picture. There is no bigger picture than following the Constitution. That's what the Supreme Court uses. That's what everyone should use as the bar. Him being a constitutional lawyer, I said, you know what? Everybody's got an agenda. Everybody's either being threatened, paid off, or something else, and I just can't affiliate with either party because I'm tired of the agendas.
Yeah, I agree. I still want, in general, if it comes down to a Republican or a Democrat, 90% of the time,
Oh,
maybe
absolutely.
more than 90% of the time, I'm going to be like, okay, I want the Republican to win, but I would rather there be neither of those people even running.
Well, my Republican that I really wanted to win, and I followed him throughout the whole campaign, he's getting ready to be governor, I think, of your state, is Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yep,
I
I've
don't know how
read his
much
book.
you've. He is a true genius who is also very personable. I mean, I've seen him in town halls not know a thing about the trucking industry. Talk to a trucker for 2 or 3 minutes and then start speaking like he was an expert in the trucking industry just from a few probing questions he asked. He is a self-made business person, a first generation immigrant Father comes in, works a factory job, goes to night law school to become a lawyer. He goes to Yale, super smart, and then to you just have to really give some respect to him, because when all the stuff was going on with Trump and they were trying to take him off the ballots, he comes out and says, any state that takes you off the ballot, I'm going to take myself off, and so should every Republican candidate, which they weren't. And then he's doing twice the town halls of any other politician, and he finds time to write an amicus brief and send it to the Supreme Court in Trump's defense, and Trump is his competition. So,
I agree. I like a lot of what he says, most of what he says. I think that if he's going for governor now, but if he was going again in the future for president, I'd probably have to look more into some of the I don't know the validity of the accusations against him, and with his pharma company. I never he was at the time I saw him, he was already kind of backing away, so I was like, I don't really care to look it up.
From what I understand,
I like a lot of what he says.
From what I understand, he went and bought drugs that had been shelved by other pharmaceutical companies, and then finished running them through R&D, and they saved a lot of lives. He cherry picked the drugs that the other pharmaceutical companies were not using, and would buy those patents and buy them from the pharmaceutical companies.
Okay.
So I don't think he had the standard business plan of big pharma, which is right there with the military industrial complex and everybody else, BlackRock, all of them. I don't think they have America's best interest at heart. I think it's all about money. So let me ask you a couple things, and I think we've gone over a few of them. Some of the things that you say you go over in your book, you go over basic freedoms. Now, in your view, what are basic freedoms?
The Bill of Rights, essentially.
Okay.
The biggest focus are on 1 and 2, though.
Okay.
Guns and speech, in my opinion, those are the basics of any society. Not let alone a government. Without those, without the ability to defend yourself and the ability to proclaim your opinion on subjects, then reality kind of gets warped into something else.
Understood. Okay, economics.
Okay, so the biggest things I talk about economics wise is monopolies, and like I said, here's the anarcho part, just a decentralization of power. So the left will probably like my rejection of monopolies, but then in that maybe even same paragraph, rejection of unions as well, because they're monopolies on the opposite side of the push and pull, the buy and sell. Also, I go into talking about the Fed and its use to have inflation and control inflation, which is just a hidden tax on the American people. I kind of go into things that the left fights for that are actually used by the very people they claim to hate. Yeah, the evil billionaire, except they promote policies that actually empower those people that they claim to hate.
You're talking about left, right?
Correct.
95% of billionaires in America are Democrats.
Yeah.
So it's all smoke and mirrors. I mean, how did Kamala get $1 billion and some dollars in a month, in her super PAC?
I think it's easier to just admit to yourself that you're jealous. That's what I know I am. I want to be a billionaire. I'm not willing to work enough to become a billionaire, but if somebody, I would want to be a billionaire. If somebody said, "Hey, you want to be?"
Would being a billionaire make you a Democrat?
Probably, yeah.
Really? Okay.
I'm not going to claim that I am unbuyable, because I've never had somebody offer me $1 billion to sell out my principles. But I know that the life I lead is not a big enough offer for me to break my principles. But I can't honestly say, oh, I'd never sell out on this issue or that issue for $1 billion because $1 billion is a lot.
Thousand millions. Okay, so now we're going to go to censorship, and I think that's just self-explanatory. Are you talking about like on social media platforms and such?
Yeah, well, that's what it was initially. Collusion with government, on social medias. Now, I also do want to point out that just because it's legal for private businesses to censor people doesn't mean it isn't censorship. Like there's censorship and there's illegal censorship, and I think both are bad. And government censorship is obviously worse. Um, so
At its
government
core,
censorship.
really, but what you're talking about at its core, isn't it really discrimination if you're censoring one side but you're not censoring the other?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And it changes people's like perception of society and how they think society is because so here's an example I give kind of on in the left's defense. Riley Gaines, she's the swimmer that competed
I know who
against.
she is.
Okay, yeah. So she had posted something along the lines of like, "Oh, I never see any people on the right wishing harm on Joe Biden, but I see people on the left wishing harm on Donald Trump." And then I wanted to kind of prove a point, so I typed in something that was calling. I don't know what I'm allowed to say on this.
Yeah,
I
you
did
typed in something
that
explicit.
you weren't allowed to say. Yeah,
Yes.
about a person on purpose, so it would get flagged. And then I went into my emails where it said this has been removed for hateful or calls to violence or whatever it was, hateful harassment. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I put the picture of the email on there just to be like, this is why you don't see it. The reason that you don't think people on the right do some of the things that the people on the left do is because it gets taken down.
Man, I'll tell you, it's been crazy because um you know, like I said, this movement has evolved. I mean, it wasn't even a movement to start with. It was just a conservative network that put out unbiased news with that conservative perspective, and then it's just evolved. And it's I used to get so much hate messaging from the left, and then when I started reporting stuff that Trump was doing that violated the Constitution or that I may not agree with, man, I got just as much or more hateful stuff on the right. And it was, it was, and I'm like, man, this is, I mean, it's no different. It really isn't different. I saw a really, I don't know if you call it a meme, but it was a picture, and basically it was a picture of a vulture, and one wing said Republican, and the other wing said Democrat, and it said Democrat, Republican, different wings of the same vulture. And I really think it is because I see so much misinformation coming from right wing media. I see so much coming from left. And it's just like to get the truth, I mean, you have to do so much digging
Yeah.
to get an unbiased truth, that doesn't have where they're not trying to say things to get people emotional, to get more clicks and views and get them in that echo chamber. So after censorship, you've got violence.
Yeah, this is another. This is why it was a book and not a podcast.
Okay, all right, we'll skip that one then.
Well,
How
I can
about
go
foreign?
briefly over it.
Okay,
Like
okay.
just the concept, just the idea that it's society in general is based on laws to kind of direct our behavior, and the only way to enforce laws is force. So therefore, every person that believes in society believes in the application of force to do your bidding. That's kind of the thought behind it.
Okay, what about foreign policy?
Again, that's kind of the paleo conservative viewpoint on avoiding alliances and enemies, foreign like don't become obsessed with a country as always your ally. Don't become obsessed with a country as always your enemy. Um, Obviously, look at our government. It changes every 4 years. It can go. We can have two completely different leaders, and so Republican president America might be somebody's ally, and then Democratic president might be that same country's enemy, and it can just bounce back and forth, and they could have the same thing going on there. So it's kind of just like uh, reassess, do what's best for us today. Um, Not necessarily. It doesn't have to rely on what past generations have done with that country.
Okay, and last, and then I'm going to bring up something that you talked about earlier. It says bravery and safety.
So yeah, that's kind of I really do respect the left for their bravery and obviously the right for their values. I wish that either the left would adopt the values that I believe in on the right, or that the right would adopt the enthusiasm that the left has. And then, I think the a pretty common phrase is that, oh, well, the right will never be out in the street rioting because they're all at work. But uh, maybe use some vacation time. I'm not calling for a riot. I'm just saying more enthusiasm in uh, wanting things to change, more
Protest,
enthusiasm in
protest.
holding, yeah, and like to hold accountability to the Constitution, like you said. So maybe, if somebody's burning down the neighborhood, obviously, no, don't do that. Why would you? If you're protesting against the government, why are you hurting citizens? First off, like that's just that's just dumb. You're hurting like you're getting people against you by doing that. But that's not to say like if the left is going out and going to some politician's rally and being like, we don't like this idea. Okay, good. Like we should do that too. I think the right should be just as active and put as much enthusiasm and energy into it instead of knocking them for that. You know, call out the bad stuff, but that's something that's admirable in my opinion.
Absolutely. That's why I say there's things that, I mean, not as much now that the left has gone so far, Nancy Pelosi, AOC, but there still are things that I agree with. Used to be more when I was talking about the centrist, more that I agreed with on the left, but the left and the right weren't so far apart. They're just so far apart right now. So,
Agreed.
you spoke earlier of tariffs. How do you feel about the tariffs right now?
Um, this is tariff specifically. Would probably be one of my torn issues. I do think just in general, tariffs on a whole are just gonna add. They're just gonna add to inflation. But I
Mm-hmm.
do think that for short periods of time, they're they're like a weapon that can be used to knock specific countries into submission. But I don't think we should use them. I don't think we should use weapons against allies.
Well, and I'm glad you said that because I'd like to, and I have been putting this out there since he was campaigning and talking about the tariffs. And then Liberation Day just kind of threw me, things kind of went a little in left field, one thing right after another. But with the tariffs specifically, and I've put my idea of how to do tariffs versus his on multiple AIs, and every one of them comes back and says that my way of doing tariffs is definitely more efficient and would stimulate the economy much better than what Trump's doing. So let me throw this out there to you and just give you some food for
Okay.
thought. So my idea for the last year, since he's been talking about it, um, was we don't need to use a sickle, we need to use a scalpel. We don't need to put blanket tariffs on stuff we will never produce in the US. What we need to do immediately is every product that is imported into the US that is also made in the US, we need a tariff and even out the playing field so more people will buy American made products immediately and it will stimulate the economy immediately. what we need to do is, instead of turning our adversary or our allies into adversaries on the trade on the world trade stage, we should have gone to all our allies and said, look, we're going to give you two choices. One, you join our coalition to bring China to heel. Then it would have been the Western world against China, not the U.S. against China. And it would have happened literally overnight, I believe. Two, you don't join our coalition to bring China to heel to the world, and we're going to hit you with ungodly tariffs, and used it as a weapon there to get them to do. I think they all would have joined if we had just approached it, because none of them had crossed a line in the sand. Trump kept threatening it and drawing lines in the sand, and they were hopscotching, trying not to get tariffs. And then he just boom threw these tariffs on everybody and treated our allies like adversaries. And then tops it off, and I just couldn't believe this. I know that you don't have to be politically correct, but I mean, I'm a big person and a big advocate for respect. And he goes to a Republican National Convention right after he crashes the world markets and says, all these leaders are calling me, kissing my ass, wanting to make a deal. Not one leader was trying to make a deal. It went 3 or 4 months before he made a deal. So he goes on there. If I was a leader of another nation and you just crashed my economy, I'd say, screw you, U.S., I'd go to China. I felt like he was pushing our allies to our adversaries. And I just felt that it was the wrong way to approach it. And you are literally, it's a tax. Because now, if you got family in another country, or you got family visiting another country abroad, and they send you a birthday present or a Christmas present, now that little loophole that were $800 or less packages, you didn't get tariffed, everything's getting tariffed. So you got to pay money to get your own present. You got to pay money to get a birthday present or a Christmas present. I don't like that. I also don't like the fact that you're going to tariff us on stuff. We can't compete with 10 cents an hour and give benefits and goods. You know how expensive clothing and textiles would be to run it here in the U.S.? We wouldn't be able to afford it. Everybody would be, the Salvation Army. So, I just don't agree with the approach. I think it was just too heavy-handed, and it should have been much more delicate.
What do you think about, like, I don't, I haven't ran numbers on this or anything like that, but what do you think about the idea of like kind of replacing other taxation with tariffs?
It'll never happen. I looked into it. I actually did a lot of research on it. It's never going to happen. And I'll give you a few reasons. Now, this is from memory several months ago. I had a whole episode that I did this. I think I did it when I broke down Trump's first 6 months or something. I don't remember which episode it was, but I researched it. So basically, the reason that we were able to do that 100 and some years ago is because global trading wasn't where it is. We were still on the gold standard. Now we can't be on just the gold standard because there's not enough gold to deal with GDPs and backing of U.S. dollars and how much money is actually being traded. We're talking trillions of dollars, and we may have 600 or 700 billion in gold. So there's no way to get enough gold. Now, I think we should have a basket of oil, which we have plenty of, and maybe some crypto and our gold, and have a basket so we can fight BRICS. But as far as like getting it to where tariffs are taking the place of taxes, that time is come and gone. Just like textiles, the global economy, which much more simple back then. There wasn't import exports like we do, world trade like we do, and it was, it generated. You got to think of what taxes were 100 years ago. Yeah. I mean, versus like how much trade and how much money's moving from place to place. And that's just to generalize. It was much more eloquently done when I did a whole show on it, because, I had just researched it. But that's from months ago, and I'm just trying to go out of memory. And I do shows every week, so their news is always flooding in. But that's basically just kind of just summing it up, is it cannot happen. And just think, even if it did happen, we would have to be paying so much in tariffs that it may be more than what we pay in taxes.
Right.
We would definitely be paying as much in tariffs as we pay in tax. I mean, literally, Larry, so and I just did this on my Saturday morning podcast that came out today. Every week, I do a entertainment podcast that does unbiased world news, political news, all news is financial, tech, entertainment news. We do culture like celebrity gossip, news, sports, new movies, new TV shows, everything. So you can go to one place on Saturday morning and get caught up completely for a week in all entertainment going on. And so I was talking this morning about, the basically, so here we are, we do this big, beautiful bill, and it puts us in trillions of dollars worth of deficit. I mean, that's what it's going to cost, trillions. And it was sold to us. We were basically misinformed when it was sold. No taxes on overtime, no taxes on tips. Well, there's special kinds of tips, but the big caveat here is that it expires in 2028. So that bill does not lock that in. The only thing that bill locks in is the tax cuts for the wealthy. So here we are spending trillions of dollars to cut taxes, and then tariffs are taxes. So now we're having to pay extra. I just had to buy a wedding dress and pay 25% tariff on it. I got friends who bought tires. I'm not even buying them right now because the tires, they're like, oh, well, if you'd bought it before the tariffs went in, it was $700 less last week. These tariffs are, and they're really going to affect people come Christmas and holiday season now that every Sheen and Temu and all that, now that you have to pay tariffs on everything. That's a U.S. customer. That's a U.S. citizen. So we are paying a tax. So you giveth with one hand, you taketh with another, it's null and void. So now the only thing...
Except there's... I was going to say, except there's also inflation.
Also inflation, and the fact that now we added $3 trillion plus dollars, and we cut some programs that I don't necessarily think needed to be cut. Maybe they needed to be leaned up, but they definitely didn't need to have trillions of dollars cut out of them. So, the whole thing is like, one, him saying that everything's said on Truth Social. I literally take it like I'm reading the National Enquirer. Prove it to me. I'm going to stop the war in 24 hours. You had a couple meetings with Putin. This last one, now he's attacking them worse than ever, and basically came out and said, no, you're lying. We didn't say we were going to do this. The Russian minister, called Trump out when he went back and met with the European individuals and Zelensky, and was telling them, oh, well, Russia wants to do this and this. And then, like the next day or Wednesday, I think the Russian minister comes out and says, no, we didn't say that. We said we would send people that were more serious about, they don't want peace. So you got all these things that are being thrown out there that a lot of the base and the way that the right media is pushing it as it's going to happen. But if you actually look into it, it doesn't hold water, but it's just about charging the base. It's about making money because the media is about money.
Saying the right things, doing
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
I was gonna say the one of the big things for me was recently that I had seen was the going back on the 87,000 IRS agents, canceling their hiring and then being like, oh, actually, never mind. We do want to keep going after people for their $600 that they won in a fantasy football draft.
Well, did you see, a thing that kind of goes with that is the whole firing of federal individuals. Their whole, and it didn't come out until RFK says this, I talked with Elon and this was the plan, and this would never work in the private sector. And my whole, I've been an entrepreneur since I was young. I've always been a serial entrepreneur. And I mean, I love business. And my whole thing was the country needs to be run like a business. Well, no private industry would ever allow this. So the way they were doing firings is they would go fire for every 100 people, they would hire 20 back, the 20 best. But I'm like, listen, that's not going to work because the best of the best that you want back that walked on eggshells wondering if they were going to have a job that would make 5 or 10 times more in the private sector for what they do as a civil servant, when you treat them like you know what and have them on edge and then fire them and then think they're going to wait around for you to hire them back, heck no. If I was them and I could make 5 or 10 times and I tried to serve my country and my country did that to me, I'd go worry about how much money I was going to make as a person.
Yep.
So really, they're getting rid of their talent, and that would never fly in private industry. That is so inefficient. Oh, we're going to hire back 20% of the people we fired. They should have never been fired to start with.
Yeah, it's when you do that, you've introduced like now when they come back, there's an assumption of risk they're taking because they, you know, if the job stability is not there, then there's a risk that they're on, taking by working with you again, and therefore uh, that changes the leverage situation. Like you have less leverage when you hire them back because you're more risky. It's kind of like if you've had a period of time without with like a rocky job history, and then you go into an interview, the company sees that and they know, oh, I'm taking a risk by hiring you, so I'm going to give you $1 less an hour, $2 less an hour, and it's just the same thing but reversed.
Yeah, I mean, it's no different than the way we're deporting people right now. First off, Trump used the wrong act. He used some rare wartime act that hadn't been used but three times and is fraught with constitutional pit holes. He should have used the same thing that he used or that Obama used. It was a National Security Act, and that Clinton is the one that came out with it. It was ratified in 1996, and that was why he was able to deport millions. I mean, in the first couple of years, was because it basically under national security it takes away all these Fourth Amendment challenges. They don't even see a judge. It empowers local law enforcement to help ICE. It is the way if you want mass deportation to get mass deportation. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's been used twice before for mass deportation. Why wouldn't you use it? Why would you use some act that's fraught with constitutional challenges so you're almost getting in your own way? Then the way you're deporting, we got 7 to 14 million or so people that supposedly came in. They're living off the government. They're living in hotels. They got cell phones paid for. They got 3 hots a day. And instead of going to the people who are basically draining tax money, you are deporting all the people who pay tax money, who have been here well before Biden was president, 10, 20 years, who own businesses. My thing is you are deporting in reverse. Why wouldn't you deport the drain on society and then at the end of everything come to the people who have lived here 10 or 20 years, have businesses, homes, families, and say, okay, we're going to give these people, and we're not talking about a lot of people, I mean, we're talking about healthcare system and everything. We're going to give these people a 10-year pathway to citizenship. For 10 years, you have to keep a job and cannot be unemployed for longer than such and such. If you are unemployed, you cannot receive unemployment because you are not an American citizen. You cannot commit any major crimes. I mean, if you get a traffic ticket, that's one thing, but felonies or anything like that. At the end of 10 years, if you've walked that tightrope walk, paid all your taxes, you have your pathway to citizenship. You've been here 25 or 30 years. Why get rid of those people first when we're talking billions, maybe even trillions in residual income in the economy? Like I said, it's deportation in reverse. No, we want mass deportation of all these military-aged men and Chinese men and people that came into the country and they said to make more money. That's not an asylum issue. We want the deportation. I just want you to do it smart. It's almost like he gets in his own way and he trips over his own feet.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Unless unless he just didn't care to begin with, and he was just like, oh, I don't know, somebody else figure out the plan, do whatever you want.
Well, that's where when I did a lot of research,
like, I just needed to say what I needed to say to get in power.
Which is the problem with most politicians. We've been desensitized to it because we hear all this and then it never ends up happening. That's why we have to hold them to a higher standard. One thing I want to say before we go on with the interview, which I only have a couple more questions for you, but you had mentioned about going back in history when Israel was formed.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're aware of this, and I think that part of us bending over backwards for Israel comes from this. You tell me what you think. So if you look back, and this is not, you have to dig for this, because history is always written by the winners. Therefore, they write it biasly and favorable to them. So you have to dig for this. Now, by no means is Hitler a good guy. He was a bad guy. But Hitler came to England, France, and the U.S. before he built concentration camps. And he says, I don't want these Jews. Take them before I have to deal with them. FDR had a meeting, I forget what it's called, I think it was back in 1938. 80% of the American people said they did not want Jewish immigrants. So we are almost culpable in a sense, us, England, France, for the Holocaust. Because we basically pushed them in and said, you're staying in, we don't want you. So we let Hitler build those concentration camps when he tried to give them to us and said, I don't want them. But you won't find that in a regular history book. You have to look that up.
I will. I didn't know that. I don't know if I would say. I don't know what the level of culpability is. I would say it's very low, but not zero.
Well, I mean, listen. All right, so let's give you an analogy. So a family knocks on your door. You look out and say, I'm not letting them in. Now, they don't look like a bad family, and then they get killed outside your house. You are a little bit culpable because you didn't let them in when they're begging you for safety.
Right. Yeah, I guess it depends on, I don't know that exact story. It would depend on if we had foreknowledge of, like, Hitler's plans for concentration camps and extermination.
We knew Hitler wasn't a good guy.
What year did you say it was in?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was 1938. But you can look up FDR meeting with other world leaders before World War II, where Hitler tried to give us the Jews or something, that'll have the keywords. I think it was 1938, and I forget the name of it, but it was with a whole bunch of world leaders, and I know that 80% of Americans were against bringing Jewish migrants into the United States. So I only say that because it may help soften the blow if you look into it and, okay, we feel a little bit responsible for this atrocity that almost caused genocide, and therefore we work with these people and go a little bit above me. And plus, when I looked into Israel has a lot of intelligence through the Mossad and a lot of technology that we use as well, that we don't manufacture. So my whole thing was, I don't want them to give anything to us, and I don't want them to expect anything from us. If we want something from them, we'll buy it. If they want something from us, they buy it. Maybe they get a 20 or 30% discount for being an ally, but they still buy, and there's still money to be made. There's profit margins in there for money to be made. It needs to be a business transaction on both ends.
Yeah, they can be on the platinum plan, but they're still on the plan.
Absolutely, put them on the platinum plan. All right, so I was reading, and I want to say that we are similar in the fact that we have both fought abuses of power our whole life. And it says you were a whistleblower in the U.S. Marine Corps. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It wasn't like a major story or anything. So
okay.
I had a roommate that was doing stuff inappropriate with an underage girl.
Oh God.
He for some reason he thought that was like something he was gonna come brag to the boys about and get some cheers.
Oh no.
He was wrong when he came and told me. Sorry, I'm snitching.
Oh no, that's not underage is not good. So go ahead.
The why it kind of turned into something bigger was I went to the command and they were more their thoughts on it was this happens all the time. We're not going to make the Marine Corps look bad, so shut up. Stop talking about it. And that kind of led to me continuing to, because they did it on a serious issue, then I kind of just became a thorn in their side, intentionally an asshole. Be like, I'm going to do this on petty stuff too. Like, you're not taking care of the big one? Go, get ready.
Shotgun approach. I'm going to throw it all at you, see what sticks.
Yeah. And then, it's like, oh, you're stealing copper? You're stealing copper, and that's supposed to be, like, sold, and, like, the military recoups the money, but instead you're just pocketing it. Oh, well, okay. Well, guess what? Not anymore.
Well, I mean,
I'm just like, until somebody deals with the pedophilia thing, then I'm gonna keep going, and I'm gonna make your lives hell. And they were like, well, we're the United States military. Trust me, we're gonna win. And I was like, yep, Yeah, you probably are. And I'm still gonna
Oh,
keep fighting.
absolutely. Anytime you see the U.S. against you as one person, it don't work. Um,
Yeah,
so,
I
so
learned that
if you,
lesson.
yeah, sometimes it can be a really hard lesson. If you could leave this audience with one piece of advice, what would that be?
uh, that even if you disagree with me, that you should make a an actual effort to sit down, go over what makes you emotional, and then in response to those things, good things and bad things, risks and rewards, find out your logical reasoning behind why those things make you mad, why those things make you happy, and plan out a response that you have ready, so you don't fall into the trap of giving up freedoms because of an emotional reaction. And buy my book.
Absolutely. We're going to put that link down. Absolutely. Get the book. Jack, could you please stay in the studio for a few minutes while I wrap this up? I'd like to have a few words with you before you leave.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks for
Well,
having
Jack,
me.
no, Jack, thank you so much for joining the Patriot Party. And to all of you out there, stay safe. Check out Jack's book. And don't forget to catch our Saturday morning show at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, where truth meets every corner of the news.